So our next unit is going to be printmaking, and if you're at home, you might be wondering how that is going to happen and what all the pieces you might need are. So I'm going to introduce you to some of the tools of printmaking, and there's also going to be a PowerPoint in Canvas that's going to talk about the different types of printmaking. So it's important to watch both of these if you're fully online, whether it's full-time or just currently due to illness or quarantines, so that you know what's going on. So the idea of printmaking is basically that we're making some kind of plate or board that has some kind of a design on it that can be repeated multiple times. So before computers and things like that where we could just print off multiple copies, printmaking was revolutionary as a way of producing art, because not only you put all the work in to make this plate and to make a beautiful piece of art, but it wasn't just for one person. You could print it over and over again until the plate deteriorated. And that was something that had never been done before. So printmaking, it has a long history of being a really cool art form. So the idea behind it is that there's multiple types, and in the PowerPoint attached in Canvas, you're going to go through the different types of printmaking. We're only going to be dealing with intaglio, or at least a version of intaglio today, or during this project. If you take the printmaking class, we will be doing other multiple types of printmaking. So if this is something that you find really fun, definitely take printmaking graphic design with me another semester. So relief printing is when you start with, so this is a linoleum block. So it's when you start with a block of either linoleum or wood or like some kind of a carving material, and you take one of these carving tools and you actually peel out chunks from the piece. And so you can see I carved out just some little lines here. What's going to happen is that if I were to put ink on this whole thing would be black, or whatever color I choose, except for these little lines. And so you're carving away your whites. And that's an important thing to think about. And it's the process we're going to be doing for class is kind of a mix of relief and intaglio. Intaglio is when you're scratching out the dark lines. So this is going to be a little more on the relief side, but the same idea as intaglio, where we're like digging in. So intaglio is when you take a surface and you're scratching darks into it. So if I was going to be creating intaglio on this piece, I could carve in little lines with my pen. In most cases, when you're doing intaglio, you're using either a metal, like copper, or a plexiglass plate, and you're using one of these sharp tools, and you're actually scratching into the plate. And the reason that we're scratching into this hard plate is that we're scratching in where we want our dark lines or our dark textures, because we're going to wipe ink all over the entire surface, and then it's going to get into all the little cracks and scratches, and then we wipe it off. And then stick it through a press with wet paper, and that wet paper will push into the little dishes that you've created that are full of ink, and when you peel it up, you can get really fine detailed lines that are a lot harder to achieve with relief printing. So for us in class, we're going to be doing more of relief than intaglio, but we are scratching in versus carving out, so it's kind of a weird in-between as far as our brains go. But as we create our plates, which we'll go more into depth with the instructional video, what that's going to do is it's going to create these dishes where when we print ink on top, we will have a full black circle except for where these lines are at. So you'll have to think about that in your design, is that you're carving away the whites or where you would like the color to be. The next thing to think about is that we need our brayer. So this is a soft to hard, depending on what type of printmaking you're doing. This is like a slightly squishy one. What would happen is that we would take some ink and we would put it on one of these plexiglass things, and you roll it out until you get a nice hiss. When you come in to print your plates, you will get to experience this. And then we take our brayer that is full of ink and we roll it on top of our plate. And then we can put paper on top of our plate, and we use something called a baron. So these are either a big baron or a spoon baron. If you're at home and you want to just print these at home, which we'll talk about over email, if that's something that you want to do, you can use the back of a wooden spoon. And the idea is basically when you lay that paper on top and then you press with your baron, it smushes the paper onto that ink, and this is slightly sticky, so it's not going to just like off your paper unless you've got too much of it. And once you lift it up, you will have a nice print that's nice and solid because we've used constant and a little bit more pressure than just like pressing with our hand. So those are the biggest things you need to know about printmaking. Next, go to the techniques video, or the different types of printmaking PowerPoint if you haven't done that already. And then after that, we'll get into the actual project.